I'm joined by Antonio from Deloitte, Sid from Remy, Tony from Lemming Chain, and Ruth. And when I said, where are you from? You said, I'm just Ruth. And I like that. So welcome, just Ruth. So we've got probably just about half an hour or so. Do you want to just start, if we start with you, Ruth, do you want to just give a very brief, meaning very brief, please, a very brief, just an intro, who you are and what your interest in blockchain is?
Sure. So I've worked with internet development projects since the 1990s, and that sort of grabbed me back then, and blockchain grabbed me about 4 years ago, and I just got very interested in it. And as a project for college last year, I designed a proof of concept for a citizen identity system. So I've been involved in the blockchain community in Ireland, meetups and hackathons, and just keep on top of what's happening internationally. And I'm currently consulting in Microsoft, so get some insight into what's happening there with blockchain.
Cool. Tony, nice and brief.
Yeah, sure. I guess I'm kind of coming at it more from a technical point of view. So I'm a technology consultant by trade, I guess. I got involved in kind of blockchain kind of in the early days. You know, it was one of these new technologies that came out, and everyone, you know, in my kind of peer group immediately said, why didn't I think of that? I've been actively involved in kind of the blockchain community in Dublin and internationally for a few years now, and Lemming Chain actually started out as a blockchain meetup in Dublin about 2 years ago.
Cool. Antonio.
Hi, so I'm Antonio Senatore. I'm a director in technology consulting in Deloitte, and I'm the global CTO of Deloitte Blockchain. So I look after the global Deloitte blockchain team in terms of technology roadmap, serving different clients in the blockchain space, looking at our partnership with different startups, partnership with different technology vendors in the blockchain space. I co-lead the EMEA Blockchain Lab in Dublin, which is a team of about 30 people, split 80% technologists, 20% consulting, and we serve different clients across the EMEA region as well.
Perfect. Sid.
My name is Sid Desai, and I represent Remy as their head of business development. At Remy, our goal is to get rid of passwords, and we do this by implementing a decentralized PKI, a public key infrastructure, which supports the modern web as we know it.
Thank you. So I'm going to put some questions to you. There's no particular order, so you can just jump in and answer my questions. If you hear something and you want to follow up on someone else's answer, feel free. You don't have to take it in turns and going in a nice order or anything like that. So let's just cut straight to the chase. This blockchain malarkey, is it just hype?
I think if I may start, any kind of technology that's at this maturity level goes through what I call a hype cycle. I think most of us know what a hype cycle is. In fact, Gartner publishes a hype cycle every year. I think it's available for free on the internet. It is certainly going through its maturity phases, and it will still take a little bit of time for it to reach full maturity. You can think of the current state of blockchain the way it is today as the internet technology when it was in the 90s. It took the internet technology about 25 plus years to come to what it is today, and we certainly believe that blockchain will still go through that that cycle. It may not take 25 years, but it's definitely going to take a little bit of time, but it's certainly not hype.
Well, yeah, I totally agree with this one. In general, I mean, I always refer to blockchain as a protocol, but it's a protocol that has enabled an ecosystem. And Gartner actually recently published this hype cycle for blockchain, dividing, actually splitting all the achievements that blockchain has given to us, from cryptocurrencies, digital identity, ICOs, etc. Now, although I didn't agree with all the points made in this graph, but that's normal, I mean, people have different opinions, it's a good way of seeing that. What has blockchain enabled so far to us, and where are we with that? So if you look at the core protocol, the different blockchain protocols that we have out there, actually we are well beyond the hype. We are in the path of the Enlightenment. We are looking at, okay, we know now what we can do with this protocol, and we are figuring out applications around that. If you look at the cryptocurrencies, well, we understand them. We kind of know what we can do and what we can achieve with crypto. And there are several other things within the blockchain space that are really at the hype, things like digital identities, very early stage, although things are happening fast. So rather than saying, I mean, is blockchain a hype? I mean, there's part of blockchain technology that is very well mature and known out there, and there are applications of blockchain which are still in the hype phase.
Tony.
Yeah, so I think I get asked this question a lot, usually by fellow programmers, and it's typically harder to sell them on blockchain not being hype, because a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. So usually what I do is I explain it in terms they understand. So the way I view blockchain, it's, I guess, the next generation of infrastructure in relation to how we develop software applications. And by way of comparison, the last kind of major infrastructural shift we saw was cloud computing. And ultimately, cloud computing, led to the rise of the platform. So blockchain is that, but multiplied by about 1,000. So no, it's not hype at all.
Ruth?
I think blockchain is here for good, but I think there is a lot of hype around it. And I guess in the last year, it's sort of gone mainstream, and it's in our daily newspaper. So it's not just developers and people in the technology industry that are looking at it. And one of the things that affected was I found in the blockchain community, there was a lot more of a mix-up between blockchain and crypto. So you had a lot of blockchain events you were going to that turned into crypto events. So, and that's just my own personal choice. I've always divided them out separately, even though they're interrelated. So I think that has created a hype as well, the whole Bitcoin thing and its increase in price and the various currencies. So it's mixed up in hype, but I think it's going to go on.
Well, that's good, because if I'd have said to you all, is it hype, and you just said yes, that would have been a very short panel. So I'm pleased that you collectively said no, you don't think it is. So tell me, what do you think the positives of utilising blockchain technology are? We don't need to go in this single file order, by the way. We can mix it up. So whoever wants to go.
Yeah, you can go first. Yeah.
Tony?
No, fair with me.
Well, let's look at blockchain. I mean, as a technology, the first value that has is the ability to disintermediate, which, if you say it like that, it's like, yeah, fine, what does it really mean? I mean, we are all used to intermediaries in our life, in our society, to clearance houses, reconciliations, governments that act as intermediaries, institutions. Well, that's pretty powerful, because it's kind of a technology that gives back the power to the individual and to the people to own their own right and, right of their own data, right of their own decisions, etc. So disintermediating means a massive shift into our society. I mean, to be honest, if we look at Bitcoin, which is basically, we all know what it is, cryptocurrencies, peer-to-peer, cash system, even if it's probably not a cash system as such, which disintermediates basically almost at a bank or a central bank, that should be almost treated like an achievement into our civilization, a landmark, a milestone into our civilization. Disintermediating, to me, means a massive shift in the society. And that's probably the biggest advantage of blockchain technologies, because then it opens to all sorts of new business cases, new social models, new government models. I mean, it's really big. It's as big as the internet, if even more.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Antonio. I guess blockchain, what it ultimately does is creates trust between actors and organizations that don't necessarily trust each other, and that is pretty big. I guess what we're kind of starting to see in terms of where the blockchain space is going is the idea of the kind of creation of like decentralized markets. And to be honest, it's it's something that is kind of revolutionary in terms of new markets. I think, 15 years ago, if I had told you that I could make a living out of posting videos on an online website of me eating toast in the morning and drinking tea, you would have looked at me like, I had 10 heads. Or even 10 years ago, if I told you that I could make a living out of not posting pictures of me online, but posting pictures of my dog online and make a very good living out of it, you would have, also looked at me like I had 10 heads. That's the thing about kind of new markets that I've found that, we don't really see them coming until they're already there. And I think blockchain is going to facilitate a wave of new markets that are going to completely change the way we do business.
Ruth?
I think early on, as an idealist, I was hopeful that blockchain was going to do what the internet didn't. So we've ended up with these massive internet giants, which pay my salary as well, so I shouldn't be criticising them. But, I thought when blockchain came in that it would create more opportunities for the internet to work similar to how Tim Berners-Lee had his vision originally, and the more democracy, fairer trade, etc. As time's gone on, as I'm looking at the developments, I think that possibility of repeating what we did in the internet is there, and I'm not sure that it won't all land in the hands of certain people. I think there's going to be new movers because they've gotten in early to understand the technology and to use the technology. But I think because as citizens we're not engaged enough in what's happening and our governments are not educating us well enough, that we're not demanding that this technology get used for good. And that's where it needs to go. Our governments need to educate people, and people need to be saying, I want this used so that it's for good. And, we have these projects going on, ID 2020, which is giving identity to refugees. And, they're great projects, but I think we need to look back 20 years down the line and see what was the effect of giving taking 1 million people's biometrics, and without fully understanding the technology that we're using and where we're storing stuff. So, I see the good and the downside, and I'm hoping that as time goes on, governments will engage more and corporations will engage more, and that opportunities that's there because we have to collaborate as larger entities may flatten out that landscape a bit.
Well, I think I agree with the panelists for sure. I mean, there's a number of advantages that we all know of: decentralization, a node-driven trust model. I think for me personally, the number one advantage of blockchain technology, it's given all of us sort of a model to move away from data monarchy towards data democracy. I think for people like you and I and everybody else in this group, it's given us a model to throttle how much of our private information do we release out there to the internet and to the companies that use our data or misuse our data. And I think for me personally, that's the biggest benefit, if anything.
So tell me about applications of the blockchain that you've seen. So you mentioned, Ruth, a second ago, you was talking about within immigration, etc. But I'd be really interested to see what you would regard as the best application use of blockchain so far.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah.
We'll do the
I'm just going to pick one, or else we'll be here all day. Tony, what's your thoughts?
I only get to pick one. So there's been so many cool applications so far. So from Moi Coffee, who've really been kind of, kind of leading the way in terms of, their fair chain commodity offering on blockchain. You've got the guys at the Euro Foundation here in Dublin who are trying to create a stable crypto coin for the Ethereum ecosystem. But personally, I think the most interesting blockchain application I've seen so far is one that we did internally. It was a bit of kind of tongue-in-cheek type thing. So an MP came out recently and kind of voiced his opinion that blockchain technology would solve all the hard border issues we were going to have in the future. So obviously, everyone laughed and said, that's just not going to happen. But one of the guys put together a proposal and ultimately designed out a system that could possibly work. So over the space of about 2 weeks, we implemented a POC in relation to, moving goods cross-border. Eventually, when the UK does leave the EU, and it's something that we think could be viable. I don't think it is going to be just that solution. I think it would be a larger kind of buy-in from other key players in the area, but it's something that we found very interesting because it was blockchain technology solving a real world problem that is going to affect millions in the next few years.
Ruth?
So I guess a lot of what I've been seeing up until this year was proof of concept. So I came across a project within Microsoft, came through a contact at the airport one day, and they've actually launched a blockchain that cuts out the clearing houses for paying royalties to developers. And it's on Corda, and it was launched back in May, June. So the one that I like to keep an eye on is Nuggets. That's from my privacy perspective, as Sid was saying. It allows you check out with a blockchain. So like you would check out with PayPal, instead of having to give all your details, you check out with Nuggets. It went into the FDA sandbox in the UK about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and it's just been developed rapidly since. So I like that company.
Mm-hmm. Antonio?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the blockchain application that is currently running, the best one is still Bitcoin, in fairness. The one that is currently live running, and it's really, as I said before, a milestone in our civilization is still Bitcoin. If I look at those applications that are currently being developed, applications that I see that they're about to come out very soon, there are several solutions on digital identity, and those are really key. Those are key for the future of digitalization and digital life. I mean, having a unique identity which is endorsed at the global stage becomes crucial, both for our privacy and for access to services in the future. And there are really good applications out there. What the future is going to look like, though, what else blockchain can do rather than digitizing assets and giving us digital identity, I think the best application is yet to come. I can see blockchain playing a huge role into the IoT and artificial intelligence space. Things like decentralized artificial intelligence, self-maintained artificial intelligence. You're gonna, so far the way we are using artificial intelligence and bots is pretty much like an agent running somewhere that gets some data, becomes intelligent, learns, and then gives you an answer. What about interconnecting all of those? What about interconnecting those agents into our life, into our digital assets? What is the challenge there? Why we don't do that now? We don't do that now because there's a trust problem, because you don't know whether the data that is going to fetch into this AI is going to be the right data, and you even don't know whether you're talking to the right AI or not. That AI doesn't have a digital identity. I think the future is going to, the future big application for blockchain is really when you get into a decentralized AI interconnected with IoT that can bring really to life, our digital experience. And it's something that, there are a few protocols already in development.
Thanks. Sid?
Yeah, apart from the obvious, which is Bitcoin that everybody knows about, there's a whole bunch of projects out there on the internet that I'm personally passionate about. If I could name drop here, the project that I represent, REMI, we are essentially trying to decentralize PKI. PKI, or public key infrastructure, is sort of the plumbing of the web. It's the technology that's been around for about 20 years now, and it sort of drives what the secure internet of today is. But there's some fundamental issues with the centralized models and the way PKI has been designed. And there has been no adaptation or no evolution of the archaic PKI systems until today. So at REMI, we are trying to kind of focus on taking that archaic PKI model and sort of flip it on its head by creating trust driven by a node network and having applications such as authentication and log on using no passwords through use of certificates in the blockchain. So for me personally, that's the most passionate project that I'm excited about, and that's happening now, and it's available today, not in the future. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
I find it interesting you mentioned Bitcoin being one of the best examples. If anyone wants to know how to make a small fortune with Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin, copy my buying patterns and do exactly the opposite. That's how you will make some money. Whenever I've bought Bitcoin, you sell it. Whenever I've sold it, you buy it. You'd be doing all right if you did the complete opposite to me. That's for sure. Right. Blockchain, the risks. So we've just been talking about whether it's hype, where we see it being leveraged for good. What about the risks associated with blockchain as you see it? So Tony, if we start with you.
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest risk is in relation to blockchain as a technology. So there is this view that blockchain is some magical silver bullet, and if you're engaging with it, you're set for the future, which is just not the case. I think blockchain technology is just one part of an organization's decentralized strategy, really. So ultimately, I think what you need to do is look at blockchain in terms of your corporate's decentralized approach. So in relation to new markets, in relation to other technologies that you should be using in tandem with blockchain, and ultimately with engaging with your customers in a decentralized manner, because ultimately it's completely changing the way a lot of organizations are going to do business, moving away from this centralized model that we currently have at the moment to something that is unheard of. So yeah, I think just being aware that blockchain is only one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, Antonio, the risks.
Yeah, I mean there are risks in the business in general, as Tony said. I mean, you're going to operate in a decentralized fashion. You're going to disintermediate. That in some cases may mean the end of the business. In some cases, and that's always going to be a risk. There is a risk, of course, of people not understanding blockchain well, just using in the wrong way, which can cause more harm than good, even in the privacy space and security space. The major risk in the technology itself stems from the fact, in my view, is that we are now building large protocols. We call them fat protocols. Let's call them large protocols on top of what we have to enable decentralized communication and smart contracts and things like that. Those are extremely complex things. It's going to take years to get them right. We are early stage. We have done a lot so far, but there's still a lot to go. Those protocols, are going to be complex, and they're going to be adjusted and fixed over time. And, there's going to be problems at the beginning of the adoption. That's guaranteed. That's the way technology works. And, risk of, failure is always there. Risk of betting on the wrong technology is always there, but it's no different from any other technology, in fairness, from that point of view.
Sid?
I think for me personally, the risks are definitely there. I mean, any kind of technology at this maturity level does have some inherent risks. If you look at the Web 2.0 technology back in the 90s, yeah, a lot of people actually thought in the businesses and the enterprises, well, this is sort of risky. Putting your data on the cloud is risky. And now people are moving on the cloud. So there are some inherent risks involved with any new technology. I think for us in particular, there are two kind of things that come to mind. The first one is the adoption of this technology. There's a lot of bad rap that blockchain's been getting, obviously, because of experiences where people buy high and sell low. And a lot of that has been associated with cryptocurrencies. But blockchain is not not just cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is one of the applications of blockchain technology, but it's not equal to cryptocurrency. So I think when people understand the powers of this technology and they apply it in the right way, and the technology itself will start getting a lot more adoption. So I think that's one of the risks. And the other one, I think, is the lack of standardization. I think for any application to be built on Web 2.0 or Web 3.0 or the blockchain model, as we call it, it has to be compatible with what's already built out there and has to be able to talk to each other. So when one enterprise builds an app on an X blockchain and another enterprise builds an app on a Y blockchain, we got to find a way to make these blockchains talk to each other and have these standardizations in place. So I think that for me is the biggest risk. If there's no standardization and no standards developed as the technology matures, that will be, we'll be creating more blockchain silos and instead of working together.
Ruth.
I think the risks associated with blockchain aren't much different than what's associated with other types of coding and vulnerabilities that you get through non-security focused coding, copying and pasting from other pieces of programs. So it's basically putting good programming practices in place, and if you're reusing code, to do good due diligence on it. But I think some of the risks around blockchain are what people are deciding to put on the blockchain. So for me, the blockchain is a ledger and it's a yes or no answer, and that's what I want my blockchain applications to do for me. I don't want data that's private or leaves me open to risk up on the blockchain. I want that off the chain, and I just want people to be able to interrogate, to answer a question: am I who I am? Do I own this? And that sort of thing. And then I think going back to being the same as any other application, some of the biggest risks in having currencies, some of the biggest holes that I've seen people be done out of is due to phishing. So it's the same tactics being used to get your credentials, or people that accept payment in Bitcoin, where their suppliers or their customers are sent emails to send the Bitcoin to a different address than their own address. So they're the sort of things that I've seen happening. But they're the normal cybersecurity risks as far as I'm concerned. Okay.
So you've all been quite united in your viewpoint that the blockchain is a good thing, that you would like to see it more widely deployed. So I'd be interested then, what's your thoughts in terms of regulation and how or if we should be regulating blockchain and what that may look like? Sid?
Regulations.
I know you can't all just say, no, don't regulate it, don't worry about it.
Personally, for me, I think regulation stifles innovation. I do believe there's certain regulations needed in this space, specifically as applied to cryptocurrencies. But having a general kind of broad sweep regulation apply to all types of blockchain, I don't believe that's the right approach, because there's a lot of different varieties. There's public blockchains and private blockchains and permission blockchains. I personally believe that regulations do sort of stop economic growth in some capacity. I think if you just allow certain innovative companies to sort of work together and create some rule sets around, what's the best way to govern the technology, I think that might be a better approach. And I think, as far as I know, a lot of the organizations sort of rely on countries and consortiums to come up with these regulations, and mostly governments. And I think if our governments were more innovative in adopting, this technology and looking at it in a more serious fashion, I think we would have a lot more talk about it. But I feel like the terms innovation and government, they don't really go in the same sentence, personally. So I think regulation, I'm personally okay with it. It does stifle innovation, but I think we have to apply it very carefully on a case-by-case basis.
Funny.
I mean, blockchain, came about to circumvent regulation. I mean, if you look at Bitcoin, the way it came out was to circumvent the central bank, actually. If you look at Satoshi first, timestamp into the Bitcoin was about, I think it was the bank guarantee of Bank of England or something like that in January 2009. So it's a little bit difficult to regulate something that is built to avoid regulation. It becomes very tricky and almost impossible. I say it requires more standardization, as you mentioned before, rather than regulation. And standardization has done a lot for the internet in the past, has brought the internet to the level we have, which is fairly good. We are very good at it. It hasn't been perfect, and we know what are the problems, but internet has changed the world, so standardization played a big role. So I think rather than regulation, standardization would be much preferable. I'm not sure how you're going to regulate a decentralized network, really.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that just because you might want to do something doesn't mean you can actually do it. So yeah, I don't think regulation is the way to go. I mean, standardization, yes, but regulation in terms of blockchain, probably not. Just from a practical point of view, you're just not going to be able to do it. Now, look, maybe some services built on top of blockchain may be able to be regulated in the future, but I guess maybe cross that bridge when we come to it. Instead of having a blanket, we'll regulate everything in blockchain from the get-go, because it's just not going to work. So if it's not going to work, there's no point in trying it, I guess.
Yeah, what at one point here, I mean, you're asking, should we regulate the blockchain? But what about the other way around? Could blockchain help the regulator to regulate other fields better?
And do you think it could?
Oh, yes. In financial regulation, in the energy, in the carbon, in any place. So let's look at the other way around. Mm-hmm. Can blockchain be a tool for the regulator? That's yes. And it's a good tool for the regulator because it's a decentralized network. It's a trust layer. You cannot cheat with it. You cannot break it. Or it's very difficult to do. So maybe we should look at the other angle. Sorry, Ruth.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I agree with all of you. I think it's the standardization. All the W3 standards, accessibility standards, all that stuff that happened later on in the internet but made the user experience a lot better. If we start thinking about that up front, I think we've become much more user-focused in how we develop stuff. So let's start doing that. The regulation, I think, I agree with Tony, it's what's on the blockchain that you might need to regulate. And I think the problem with the regulation of things like currencies on the blockchain is that they're being regulated differently in different jurisdictions. So that's an issue because we're they'll be traded globally. The other thing that it's not really regulation, but I think there is going to be a need for people that have that crossover between legal and technical. And as we get into self-fulfilling contracts on blockchain and whether they're biased or not, maybe that's stuff that we need to be looking at. And I don't know how you regulate that and how you have the acumen within the regulators to actually go in and test that. So,
I think that, there's always two sides to the coin, and consumers at the end of the day, they look to governments to protect them, right? So if I invest $10,000 into a company that, kind of goes bankrupt tomorrow because they just left, their investors kind of in the lurch, I could technically seek help from the governments, from the regulatory authorities to get something back from them. I think because blockchain is so new and the governments are still playing catch up, they're sort of unable to wrap their minds around, well, in case something like this happens to our consumer, how do we protect them in this case? So I think that's why I said a general sweep of regulation will not apply. I think you have to look at a very specific kind of use case on a case-by-case basis and work with the industry to figure out ways and areas in which regulation might be needed, perhaps, versus regulation that may not be needed.
Thank you. So conscious of time, so if it's possible, I would like you all just to, if I start with you, Ruth, I'd be really interested just in your closing remarks, just generally in terms of what next? What next? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think should happen? And just how far do you think this blockchain thing is going to go?
Okay, so I think we're heading into 5 years of crazy development, and I think we're going to see it mature over the next 5 years. We're going to see the chaff separated from the wheat, in that we'll see who the leaders are in the area. That's already emerging. I think there's been a huge focus of blockchain in the financial sector, and I think that needs to and will start working its way into other sectors. We can see it in energy and healthcare at the moment. And I think we're probably going to be needing to put on loads of Springboard courses to train developers, so Springboard is a skills transition program in Ireland, and we just don't have enough developers in this area, so that's going to be a huge thing as well. So that will be my closing remarks.
Thank you. Tony?
Yeah, so honestly, I don't know where it's going to go in the next 5 years, and I'm someone who's actively involved in the space. It's just that new. I think the two growth areas are going to be, well, number one, I guess kind of hybrid systems that are kind of, part blockchain, part not blockchain, so kind of off-chain type services is going to be one area that's going to be really interesting. And then the second one, I think, is going to be decentralized markets. I think that's going to be a huge growth area, and it's an area that is, how do I kind of say this? It's the kind of, whenever I look at an area and I'm like, okay, does it have legs? Is it something that is going to be around in a few years' time? Typically what I do is I look at the community behind it, and the community behind blockchain and blockchain technology is growing day on day. To be honest, in my career, I've never seen a community as strong. So yeah, no, I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be a very exciting time. And I do think, yeah, decentralized markets are going to be the big area we all need to kind of look out for.
Thank you, Tanya.
I agree with everything. Like, next 5 years of hardcore development, really, protocols, decentralized markets. It's difficult to predict where we go from now on. But I mean, if I look at what was the blockchain promise and what I see being developed, we're going to look at probably in the next 5 to 10 years, digitalization of everything. Digitizing anything we have around, from our, identity to our pension, to our insurance, to our car, to objects, to things. And then we're going to look at internet of everything, like interconnecting digital assets, physical assets, our own identity, all together. And trust me, the current internet infrastructure doesn't support that. It's not built for that. It just cannot work. As simple as that. I know it's too much of a short answer, but it cannot work in the current model of protocols and internet infrastructure. So we're going to look at, a next wave of digitalization and internet of everything.
I think, for me, if you roll back 20 years, and again, think of the evolution of the internet and evolution of the cloud, both of these sort of technologies came through its own maturity phase. And we have, apps such as Netflix of the modern Web 2.0 technology that we all use today on our phones. Back in, 2004 or 5, Netflix wasn't what it is today. So I think you have to understand that a certain piece of technology is going to go through a lot of change, a lot of shifts. And especially something like blockchain, I believe companies, countries, consortiums do need to work together to create these standards so that we can actually better adapt, this technology to our future needs. If you think about, companies that move to the cloud very quickly, they're the ones who are the most successful now. And there are certain brick and mortar companies that are going bankrupt because these companies didn't have, a vision for the internet and vision to do business on the cloud. And I think we have to look at this technology in a very serious way because it does have that, domino effect on a lot of different aspects of business. So I think if you have these engaging conversations at events such as these and consortiums, it definitely does help the industry as a whole. So I think the next 5 years, as the panelists mentioned, I think for a lot of the blockchain projects are going to be focused on development, working with partners, working with consortiums, creating standards, and I think then we'll see a lot more adoption and maturity in this space.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, that is all that time will allow us to do, but I really appreciate that. You heard it here. It's not hype, and it's about standardization, not regulation. So thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it. That's the last panel that we've got this afternoon.